Sit down, strap in, and get ready because we have 13 combos for Fiendsmith Snake Eye that you need to know for this upcoming NAWCQ. What's going on, guys? Super Insane 18 here, and as I said in the intro, we are going to be bringing you 13 combos for Fiendsmith Snake Eye. Now, these are the best of the best combos that I was able to come up with and find online. I didn't want to show you guys anything redundant, so I narrowed it down from my spreadsheet of like 30 plus combos. So we're just going to show you guys the best ones, and I think that it's really important to get this done now so that if you are playing in the upcoming events, the NAWCQ and I believe the EUWCQ as well, that you have this information under your belt because this is the deck to beat. So let's go ahead and jump on in. So as you can see here, we have a single copy of Snake Eye Ash, and that is going to be our first combo, and you can do so much more than you used to be able to off just a single Ash now that we have the Fiendsmith cards. Unfortunately, I'm not getting my Fiendsmith cards until we are already in Texas for the event, so we are using proxies for this video, but I will have them in hand for the event. So let's show you guys combo number one. We are going to start things off by normal summoning out the Ash, which of course is going to activate its effect, allowing us to search for a copy of Poplar, and then Poplar is going to activate its effect to summon itself when it's added. On summon, it will activate its other effect to add a Snake Eye spell. We will go ahead and add our field spell, the Divine Temple, and we can go ahead and activate the Divine Temple. This will of course allow us to place one in the spell trap zone. We are going to go ahead and place the Snake Eye's Diabellstar. Here what we'll do is we'll use the effect of Ash. This is going to send itself and the Snake Eye's Diabellstar to summon from our deck a copy of Snake Eye Oak, which will then activate the effect of Oak to go ahead and resummon out our copy of Snake Eye Ash. Here what we can do is we can use the Oak to send itself and the Poplar. This is of course allowing us to summon out our copy of Flamberge, and now we are relatively able to play through Nibiru. This is going to stick to our field until we have a negate for the Nibiru, so if Nibiru ever comes down, this will be able to summon two, meaning that we'll have both the token, two of the monsters, plus the Divine Temple should be able to summon from the spell trap, because what we will do now is after we summon, we can use the effect of Poplar that was just sent to reset out our copy of Snake Eye's Diabellstar. Snake Eye's Diabellstar will activate its effect, targeting the Oak to place it back in our spell trap zone and summon itself. So as I said, we will have this to summon through a Nibiru as well. Here we are going to go ahead and take the Snake Eye's Diabellstar and the Ash and link those off into the copy of Moon of the Closed Heaven. Now this is relatively in line with what happened in Orcus format in 2019, where any two monsters becomes your full combo, because now that we have the Moon of Closed Heaven, we can go ahead and link that off into our first Fiendsmith card, Fiendsmith Requiem. Now that we have the Fiendsmith Requiem, we can use its effect, tributing itself to summon out a copy of Fiendsmith Engraver. Now, unfortunately for the OCG, they didn't have this next card that we're going to be showing you, so what they would normally do is link these two off, and then you're kind of really susceptible to Nibiru. But we did get a TCG exclusive, so let's show you guys how it works. We're going to go ahead and use the graveyard effect of the Requiem to go ahead and equip it to our Fiendsmith Engraver, and then we can use the Engraver and the Requiem to perform a fusion summon into our copy of Necroquit Princess. The requirements on this card are a monster equipped with a monster card and one Fiend monster card. Since it specifies Fiend monster card and not Fiend monster, that means that the Requiem that's equipped actually counts as the Fiend monster card. So now that we have our Princess out, which is conveniently a level 6, we can use the graveyard effect of our Fiendsmith Engraver to go ahead and shuffle back the Requiem to summon it, and now we're able to perform an Xyz summon. You could just go into something like the DDD, but we obviously want to extend further, so first we are going to go ahead and overlay both into our copy of Ptolemy M7. Now the reason this is important is because this actually gives us an additional body. We can use the effect of Ptolemy M7 to detach specifically the Engraver, and what this does is it allows us to actually add a monster from our grave to our hand. It does not target, meaning we can actually add the Engraver that we just detached. So now we have the Engraver in hand to use its discard effect. We're going to go ahead and discard the Engraver. This is going to allow us to add Tract, which we can then activate to add our copy of Fabled Lurry. We then have to discard, so we will discard the Fabled Lurry. That of course activates the Fabled Lurry effect when discarded to go ahead and summon itself, giving us that much needed extra body. Here we can go ahead and using the M7 and the Lurry, we can link them off into our copy of Sequence, and then Sequence will be able to use its on-field effect to shuffle back both the Lurry and the Moon of the Closed Heaven, and this is going to allow us to fusion summon into the other Fiendsmith monster, which is of course the Lacrima. Now, Lacrima on summon allows us to either add or summon a Light Fiend from our graveyard, so we are going to go ahead and reborn out our Fiendsmith Engraver. So here what we do now that we have 2 level 6s, we can go ahead and overlay both into our copy of DDD Wave High King Caesar, which is now our official answer to Nibiru. Since we have our answer to Nibiru, we can get rid of our Flamberge, which is exactly what we're going to do. Using Flamberge and Sequence, we are going to link into our copy of Promethean Princess, which is then of course going to activate the effect of Flamberge. Flamberge is going to be able to reborn out the Poplar and the Ash, and now what we can do here is using the Princess, we'll go ahead and reborn out our Flamberge. Here we can take the Princess and the Ash. This will go ahead and link into a copy of Hida, and the reason that we're doing this is because we need a spellcaster. Why is the spellcaster important? Using both the Hida and the Poplar, we are going to go ahead and link into our copy of Selene, which will then gain counters. We have 1, 2, 3 spells that it will gain counters for, which is conveniently the number that we need in order to special summon a spellcaster. We will remove the 3, and we do have a spellcaster in the Snake Eyes Diabellstar, so we will go ahead and summon that out, and then finally we will use both the Diabellstar and the Selene to go into a 2-negate Appaloosa. So off of just a single copy of Ash, here's what we have. We have 2 negates off the Appaloosa, 2 summon negates off of the High King Caesar, we have the Princess live in the graveyard, which will be able to pop the Flamberge, which will give us guaranteed follow-up between our Ash and our Poplar. We have the Flamberge to either summon the Oak or the Temple to summon the Oak, which is again going to be able to get us additional follow-up from the graveyard, and we also have the Fiendsmith Engraver underneath the High King Caesar, meaning that after we detach it, we'll be able to just summon it back by shuffling back more Light Fiends, and we can even burn for damage when the Lacrima goes to graveyard as well. So it's just really incredible, really a lot of interruptions, plus you still have the 4 cards in your hand. So that's going to do it for combo number 1. Let's show you guys the next one. We're going to refer to this as combo 1.5 because it is going to be essentially the exact same combo, just with a little bit of a different starting point. And while it might seem obvious to some of you how this is going to play out, I wanted to include it in the video for the sake of making sure that this video is accessible and understandable to everybody, regardless of skill level. So we are going to go through it kind of quickly since a lot of the steps are the same, but I wanted to show it nonetheless. It's going to show you what you can do with Diabellstar plus any of your discards, and we are going to go ahead and summon out the Diabellstar by discarding any card. The card does not matter, it's just the summoning condition for the Black Witch, which is then going to activate its effect to set our copy of Original Sinful Spoils to our side of the field. Here we can go ahead and activate the Original Sinful Spoils, sending a face-up card we control, in this case the Black Witch, to summon out our copy of Snake Eye Ash. Now that we have the Snake Eye Ash on the field, this is going to play out exactly the same as the combo before it. The Snake Eye Ash is going to activate its effect, adding us our copy of Poplar. Poplar is going to summon itself and add us our copy of Temple. We're going to go ahead and activate the Temple, which is going to place the copy of Snake Eyes Diabellstar in our spell trap zone. Using the effect of Ash, we are going to go ahead and get rid of itself and the Diabellstar for the Oak, and then using the Oak on summon, we'll go ahead and reborn our Ash. Here we can use the Oak, sending itself and the Poplar to summon out our copy of Flamberge, and then that will activate the effect of Poplar when it's sent to graveyard to place the Snake Eyes Diabellstar back in our spell trap zone. We'll use the Snake Eye Diabellstar to place the Oak in our spell trap zone and summon itself out, and same as before, we're going to use the Snake Eye Diabellstar and the Ash to go into our copy of Moon. Moon here is going to link into our copy of Requiem, and Requiem is going to tribute itself to summon out our copy of Engraver. We'll use the Graveyard effect of Requiem to equip it to the Engraver, again giving us the required materials for our fusion summon into the Necroquip Princess, and then we'll go ahead and use the Grave effect of Engraver, summoning itself out by shuffling back our Requiem. This will allow us to overlay both into our copy of M7, and then we can use the M7 to detach the Engraver and add the Engraver from our grave to our hand. Using the discard effect of Engraver, we will add us our copy of Tract, which we can then activate to add and discard our copy of Lurry. This then activates the effect of Lurry to summon itself, and now that we have the Lurry and the M7, we can go ahead and link those off into our copy of Sequence. Here the Sequence will activate its effect, shuffling back our Lurry as well as our Moon, and that is going to allow us to perform the fusion summon of Lacrima. Lacrima will activate its effect on summon to either add or summon from our grave. We'll go ahead and summon out our Fiendsmith Engraver. The Engraver and the Lacrima will go ahead and overlay into our copy of DDD, which again is now our official answer to Nibiru, so we no longer need to have the Flamberge on field. We'll go ahead and link the Sequence and the Flamberge into our copy of Princess. This of course activates the Flamberge, allowing us to summon back our Ash and our Poplar, and now we can use the Princess effect to summon back out our Flamberge. Here we'll use the Princess and the Ash. This is going to go into our copy of Hida, since we need the Spellcaster in order to link it off into a copy of Selene. Now in this combo there's actually 4 guaranteed spell cards because we went through the original Sinful Spoils, so we'll gain the counters and remove 3 of them, allowing us to summon a Spellcaster. That is of course going to be the Snake Eyes Diabellstar, and then we can take the Selene and the Snake Eyes Diabellstar and go into our 2 negate Appaloosa, ending us on the exact same board as the first combo. Combo number 2 is showing another 1-card Snake Eye Ash combo, and this combo doesn't play as well into something like Nibiru, but it does allow you to play into some other threats like Evenly Matched, and we'll go over that when we get there. So let's show you guys how it's going to start. The first half of the combo is pretty much identical to the first one, but it is going to branch off once we hit our Fiendsmith plays. So starting things off, we of course are going to use our Snake Eye Ash, normal summoning it to add our copy of Poplar. Poplar will then summon itself out and using its effect to add our copy of Divine Temple. We can go ahead and activate the Divine Temple. This is of course going to set our copy of Snake Eyes Diabellstar, and exact same as before, using the Ash and the Snake Eyes Diabellstar, we're going to go ahead and summon our Oak from deck. Using the Oak effect, we will reborn out our Ash, and then we can use the Oak on field to send itself and the Poplar to summon out our copy of Flamberge. Now here, depending on when your opponent Nibirus, you could still play through it, because the Flamberge is going to stick for quite some time, but there is unfortunately a sweet spot for that Nibiru, so I just want to make sure that you guys know that. We are going to use the effect of Poplar to place the Snake Eyes Diabellstar back into our Spell Trap zone, and then using its effect, we will go ahead and place our Oak back on the field to summon it out. Same as before, using the Ash and the Snake Eyes Diabellstar, we are going to go ahead and link into the copy of Moon, and then we can link the Moon off into our copy of Requiem. Requiem will tribute itself to summon out our copy of Engraver from the deck, and then same as before, we will use the Requiem to equip it to our Engraver, giving us the necessary material to summon out our Necroquip Princess. We can go ahead and use the Engraver, summoning itself out by shuffling back our Requiem, and then we can overlay our 2 monsters into a copy of M7. Using the M7 to detach the Engraver and add the Engraver, now we have the Engraver to use its discard effect and add us our copy of Tract. Activating out the Tract, we can add our copy of Lurry and discard the Lurry that we just added, which of course activates the effect of Lurry on discard to summon itself out. Now here we're going to go ahead and link both into the copy of Sequence, and this is where the play is actually going to change. Instead of using the Sequence to summon Lacrima, we're going to go ahead and use the Sequence, shuffling back the Lurry, the Fiendsmith Engraver, and the Moon, and this is going to go into the Fiendsmith boss monster, which is Desiree. Now that we have Desiree on the field, there are a couple of cool things we can do, but we have to do a few steps first. We're going to go ahead and take the Sequence and the Flamberge and go into our copy of Princess. This is of course going to activate the effect of Flamberge to summon out 2, so we'll go ahead and bring back the Ash and the Poplar. Now what we can do is, since we have our Sequence in the graveyard, we can go ahead and use its graveyard effect to equip to the Desiree, and now Desiree is able to negate up to 2 cards equal to the link rating of the equipped monster that are face up on the field, quick effect during either player's turn. So we can get ourselves out of our Firelock, but first we want to use the Princess to reborn out our Flamberge, then we use the Desiree to get rid of our Firelock. Since we are no longer under the Firelock, we can go ahead and link into a copy of IP Masquerena, and then using the IP and the Princess, we can go ahead and go into our 2 negate Appaloosa. Finally, we can use the Flamberge to target our IP, placing it back in our Spell Trap zone, so now our end board is 4 cards. We have our 2 material Appaloosa, we have the Flamberge and the Temple, which will be able to summon out the IP. IP, of course, is going to be able to link off the Flamberge into something like an SP, which gives us all the follow-up of the cards we have in Graveyard. We also have our Princess live, and then the Desiree will be able to quick effect target up to 2 cards on the field and negate them. So if your opponent were able to do something like just go straight to battle phase and activate Evenly, we now have an out to the Evenly that we didn't have before. Again, this is a little bit more susceptible to something like Nibiru, but I just want you guys to know all of the options that are available. Combo number 3 is going to be another 1-card Snake Eye Ash combo, and this is a combo that maybe might be better into something like Tenpai because you make your stuff unable to be destroyed by battle. Granted, Tenpai still has some outs that they can do, but it is still an option worth knowing, so let's show you guys how it works. We are going to normal summon out our copy of Snake Eye Ash, and again add our copy of Poplar. Poplar is going to go ahead and summon itself, and on summon add us our copy of Temple, and then we can go ahead and activate the Temple to add us our copy of Snake Eye's Diabellstar. Here we're actually going to use the Ash to get rid of our Temple instead of the Snake Eye Diabellstar. This is going to place our copy of Oak. Oak on summon is going to go ahead and reborn out our Ash, and then we're going to use the Oak to send itself and the Snake Eye Diabellstar to summon out our copy of Flamberge. Here, what we're going to do, and the reason we sequenced it this way, is to make sure that we have these two on board with the Flamberge. We are going to go ahead and link off into our copy of Moon, which will then activate the effect of Poplar, placing back out our Snake Eye's Diabellstar. We can go ahead and go into our Fiendsmith plays, linking the Moon into the Requiem and the Requiem into our Engraver from our deck. And then here we are going to use the effect of the Snake Eye's Diabellstar, placing the Poplar into our Spell Trap zone to summon out the Diabellstar. The reason we did it this way is now we can go ahead and go directly into our sequence without having to make additional plays, and that is going to allow us to then use the sequence to shuffle back the Moon and the Requiem, and this will allow us to go into our copy of Lacrima. Now, Lacrima either adds or special summons, so in this instance we're going to go ahead and add the Engraver back to our hand, which now allows us to use the Engraver's discard effect to add our copy of Tract. We can go ahead and activate the Tract, obviously adding the Lurry and discarding the Lurry, and this is of course going to then allow the Lurry to summon itself back out to our side of the field. Now, up to this point, we've been playing around Nibiru by leaving the Flamberge live, so to make sure that we are fully Nibiru-proof, we are going to use the sequence, the Lurry, and the Lacrima, and this is going to allow us to link directly into a 3-card Appaloosa. Once we do that, we can also burn our opponent with the effect of Lacrima, shuffling back the Lurry and dealing 1200 damage, making this a relatively good combo into time as well. Now, we haven't actually used the graveyard effect of the Engraver to summon itself, so we can go ahead and summon that out by shuffling back our copy of Lacrima. And now that we have 2 monsters on field and are Nibiru proof, we can go ahead and link the Engraver and the Flamberge into our copy of IP. Of course, this is then going to activate the effect of Flamberge, summoning out 2 of our level 1 fires, and now we are good to just continue on to the rest of our board. We're going to go ahead and use the IP plus any one of our level 1s. This is of course going to make our copy of Princess. We can then use the Princess to target or not target, but rather just reborn out our copy of Flamberge. Flamberge is going to allow us to place the IP back into our Spell Trap zone, and to end our turn not only getting us out of the Firelock, but also making our stuff not able to be destroyed by battle. We're going to go ahead and link off the Princess into a Link 2 of our choice. In this instance, it's going to be Phoenix. Now, since Phoenix is co-linked, both of these monsters are unable to be destroyed by battle, so your Appaloosa has a little bit of extra protection. And now on our end board, since that was just using 1 copy of Snake Eye Ash, we have 4 cards, a 3-negate Appaloosa. We have our Masquerena, which we have to summon off the Flamberge because unfortunately we got rid of the Temple for this combo, but we are able to then use those to go into something like an SP. We of course have the follow-up off the Flamberge, as well as the Princess in our graveyard, and we also have follow-up with the Engraver being able to shuffle back the sequence. So there's just so many layers of interruption that you have here, and so many cards in hand to be like hand traps or other things for follow-up. Just an incredible combo. Now, with the 1-card Ash combos out of the way, you might be asking yourself what to do if the only playable card in your hand is Poplar. Well, lucky for you, we have 2 more combos that show you what to do off of just a single copy of Poplar. One is going to utilize Relinquished Anima, and one is going to forgo the Relinquished Anima, since a lot of players are opting to cut that since the extra deck is now incredibly tight. So let's show you guys the combo that utilizes Anima. We are going to go ahead and summon out the Poplar, which is going to activate its effect on summon, allowing us to add a copy of Original Sinful Spoils. Here we will go ahead and link off the Poplar into our copy of Anima. This will allow the Poplar to then set itself back in the Spell Trap zone, essentially giving us an additional body because we need something to send off of the Original Sinful Spoils. So that's exactly what we're going to do. Activating the Original Sinful Spoils, we are going to go ahead and send our Poplar. This is going to allow us to summon a copy of Ash from our deck. On summon, Ash is then going to go ahead and allow us to add another copy of Poplar, which, since it was added, is going to then go ahead and summon itself. Unfortunately, we've already used its summon effect, so we don't get to get an additional search, but the important part is that we now have all the bodies that we need. Using the Poplar and the Anima, we are going to go ahead and link off into our copy of Closed Heaven, and then Closed Heaven is going to go ahead and link into our copy of Requiem. Here the Requiem can go ahead and tribute itself, summoning out the Engraver from our side, or from our deck to our side of the field, and then we can go ahead and use the Requiem's Grave effect to equip itself to our Engraver. Now you might be thinking this is where we make a Necro-equip play, but we're actually not going to. We now have a body that we can get rid of with the Snake Eye Ash effect, so using the effect of Snake Eye Ash, we're going to go ahead and send the Requiem. This is going to allow us to summon out our copy of Flamberge. Now that we have our 2 on the field, we'll go ahead and link the Engraver and the Flamberge into our copy of Sequence, which is of course then going to allow us to activate the Flamberge, summoning back out a Ash and a Poplar. Now that we are at this point, we can go ahead and use the effect of Sequence. This is going to shuffle back the Requiem and the Moon, and that is of course going to allow us to summon our copy of Lacrima. Now Lacrima can either summon or add, so we will opt to add the Engraver back to our hand, and then using its effect in hand to discard and add us our copy of Tract. Here we will activate the Tract to of course add us our copy of Lurry and discard our Lurry, which will once again allow the Lurry to activate, summoning itself to our side of the field. Here we are going to use the Ash and the Lurry. This is going to allow us to link into our copy of IP Masquerena, and now that we have the Light Fiend back in our graveyard with Lurry, we can go ahead and shuffle it back into our deck for the summon effect of the Engraver. Now that we are back to 2 on the field, we can go ahead and overlay our level 6s into our copy of DDD Wave High King Caesar, now making us officially Nibiru-proof. Here we are going to use the Sequence and the IP. This is going to link off into our copy of Princess. Princess is then going to be able to activate, allowing us to summon back our copy of Flamberge, and Flamberge of course is going to allow us to reset our IP Masquerena to our side of the field. Now we want to get rid of the Firelock as well as put the Princess in graveyard, so finally, using the Princess and the Poplar, we will go into any Link to Fire of our choice. In this case, Hida is probably the best one, which it doesn't really feel great having to waste the Hida, but you gotta do what you gotta do, and that is going to end our board. So what do we have? We have 2 summon negates off of the Wave High King Caesar. We have the Flamberge, which will be able to summon out our IP, which will of course link away the Flamberge into something like a SP, or you could use the IP, the Hida, and the Flamberge to go into a 3 negate Appaloosa. Just depends what you're against and which effect would be stronger, but that will of course give us all the follow-up off of Flamberge, as well as having our Princess live in grave, with the Fiendsmith going to grave as well, so that we can have guaranteed follow-up on top of that. But now you're probably asking what happens if I'm no longer playing Relinquished Anima, so I'm going to go ahead and show you guys. We're going to start off with a normal summon of Poplar, and again that is going to allow us to add our copy of Original Sinful Spoils, which we can activate, sending off the Poplar to summon out a copy of Ash. Now here we will have Chainlink 1 Ash and Chainlink 2 Poplar. Poplar is going to place itself back in the spell trap zone, and then Ash is going to add us a copy of Poplar. Poplar will summon, and again, since we've already used the effect on summon, we cannot search an additional card, but the important part is that it just gives us the bodies we need. Here we're going to go ahead and use the Ash, sending itself and the spell trap Poplar to summon out our copy of Oak, and then Oak is going to go ahead and summon out our copy of Ash. Here we can use the Oak to send itself and the Poplar. This is of course going to get us our copy of Flamberge, and then here we're going to link the Ash and the Flamberge off into our copy of IP Masquerena. The Flamberge is going to activate since it was set, summoning either of our level 1s, does not matter which 2, because our next step is just immediately linking them off into a copy of Moon. Moon here is of course going to link into our copy of Requiem, and Requiem is going to tribute to summon our copy of Engraver from the deck. Here we'll be able to re-equip our Requiem, which again is going to give us the guaranteed material we need for our fusion summon of Necroquip. And now that we have the Engraver in graveyard again, we'll go ahead and use its summon effect, shuffling back our Requiem. Here we can go ahead and overlay the Necroquip and the Engraver. This is going to give us our copy of M7, and same as the previous combos, the M7 is going to detach the Engraver to add the Engraver back to our hand. With the Engraver in hand, we will use the discard effect to add us our copy of Tract, and activating the Tract, we will add and discard our copy of Lurry. This is going to activate our Lurry to summon itself back to our side of the field, and now we have the materials we need to go ahead and go into our sequence. Our sequence is then going to be able to use its effect, shuffling back the Lurry, and the moon, and that is going to give us the materials we need for the Lacrima. Lacrima is going to go ahead and add or summon. In this case, we are going to summon back out our engraver, and using our 2 level 6s, we can go ahead and overlay into our copy of DDD Wave High King Caesar. Now we can go ahead and take our IP and our sequence and perform our final summon, which is going to be a 2 negate Appaloosa, and then we have our turn ending. That is going to leave us with 4 cards in hand, which, if the only playable card was a Poplar, probably some form of hand traps, 2 summon negates, 2 negates as well, and we do have the follow-up engrave between the engraver that will go there, as well as the original Sinful Spoils, being able to do something like shuffle back Poplar, add Ash, and that is just going to get us full combo again on the next turn. So even though it doesn't look like that strong of a board, you have 4 guaranteed interruptions, 4 cards in hand, and guaranteed follow-up in your graveyard. With the 1-card Snake Eye combos out of the way, what do you do if you open up your Fiendsmith engine? So that is what these next couple of combos are going to show you. So here we are starting with a single copy of Fiendsmith Engraver. So in our hand, we can go ahead and discard it. This is of course going to allow us to add the copy of Tract, and activating the Tract, we can add and discard our Lurry. This allows the Lurry to summon itself on discard, giving us the Light Fiend that is necessary for the summon of Requiem. Here we can go ahead and use the Requiem, tributing it off to summon out our second copy of Fiendsmith Engraver, and now we can go ahead and use the engraver that we have in graveyard, shuffling back the Lurry. This is going to summon itself back out. Now that we have 2 level 6s, you would think that we might want to go into a rank 6, but we need to extend a little bit further first. So we're going to go ahead and link both of our engravers into a copy of Sequence, and then we can activate the Sequence, shuffling back one of our engravers plus our Requiem, and this is going to allow us to summon out the copy of Lacrima. Lacrima on summon is going to activate, allowing us to summon back our engraver that is left in graveyard, and now we have our 2 level 6s for our rank 6 play. We are going to go ahead and overlay both of them into a copy of Beatrice. This is going to then allow us to use the Beatrice, detaching specifically the engraver. This is going to send a copy of Snake Eye Ash to our graveyard. Now, with a Link 2 plus a Beatrice, we can go ahead and link off into a Link 3, and you guessed it, that is going to go ahead and get us our Princess, which will allow us to now access our Snake Eye combo. But first, don't forget that we want to use the Lacrima, shuffling back our Sequence to burn our opponent for 1200, again allowing this to be a relatively good combo into time. Here we're going to go ahead and activate the Princess, summoning out our copy of Ash, and then Ash is going to activate on summon, adding us our copy of Poplar. Poplar is going to summon when it is added, and then on summon use its effect to add us a spell, in this case Divine Temple. We're going to go ahead and activate the Divine Temple. This is going to allow us to summon back out place out our Snake Eyes Diabellstar. Now here we want to get out of our Firelock as soon as possible. We're going to go ahead and use the Ash to send itself and the Princess. This is going to allow us to summon out our Oak, and then Oak is going to go ahead and reborn out our copy of Ash. Here, Oak is going to go ahead and send the Snake Eyes Diabellstar to summon out our copy of Flamberge from our deck, and now we want to go ahead and make an IP using the Poplar and the Ash. So now that is going to activate the effect of Poplar in graveyard, of course putting our Snake Eyes Diabellstar back in our spell trap zone. Here we are going to go ahead and use the effect of Snake Eyes Diabellstar, placing our Oak back into our spell trap zone to summon itself out, and now we can use the IP and the Diabellstar to go into our copy of Selene. Selene will gain 1, 2, and our third counter is going to be off the Tract. Removing all 3, the Selene can then go ahead and summon out the Snake Eyes Diabellstar, again giving us a Link 3 plus 1 monster, going into our copy of Appaloosa. Now that we're here, we can go ahead and use the Flamberge effect to place our IP Masquerena back into our spell trap zone, and we have the exact same combo that old Snake Eyes used to end on, which is the Appaloosa, the Flamberge, the Temple, the IP with the Oak engrave. We have our Princess live engrave, as well as full follow-up off the Fiendsmith engine as well, adding a little bit of extra oomph to that older combo. Now, for this next one, it isn't going to be a full combo because it does kind of matter what you have in your hand, but I just wanted to show you guys how the old bricks of Tract and Lurry are no longer necessarily bricks. You can do this with either card because you can either go ahead and activate the Tract to add the Lurry, discard, and summon, or you can just start by flat out normal summoning the Lurry. So we're going to show you guys what we can do here. We're going to go ahead and summon out our Lurry and then link it off into our copy of Requiem. Here, Requiem is going to tribute itself to summon out our copy of Fiendsmith Engraver, and then we can go ahead and use the Requiem to equip it to our Engraver, and thanks to the new TCG exclusive Requiem or Necroquip Princess, we can go ahead and use both to summon it out, and then using our Engraver to summon and shuffle back the Requiem, we now have 2 level 6 monsters on our field. So this is why it's dependent what you have. If you started with Tractus, then you obviously can't get another Tractus, but what we could do here is we can overlay these and go into either our Wave High King, our M7, or our Beatrice. All 3 of these are viable options. It just depends on what your end board is. If you can't do anything past the Lurie, go into the Wave High King Caesar for 2 summon negates. If you can, maybe the M7 or the Beatrice ends up working better for you, but I just wanted to show you guys how, thanks to this TCG exclusive, these cards are no longer bricks. So now we're going to go ahead and move away from the 1-card combos into the 2-card combos. In this case, technically 2.5 cards because we have to have a discard for the Black Witch, but I will show you guys a way to play without a discard as well. Maybe the 3 cards in your hand are cracked and you don't want to get rid of them, but for now we're going to go ahead and show you guys the discard variant. We are going to go ahead and start things off by summoning out our copy of Ash, and as always that is going to add our Poplar and summon the Poplar. Poplar will activate on summon to add us our copy of Temple, which we can then go ahead and play to set our copy of Snake Eyes Diabellstar. Now what we're going to do is actually just summon out the Black Witch, getting rid of our discard, activating the effect of Black Witch on summon to set our copy of Original Sinful Spoils. Now we are fully able to play through Nibiru no matter what our opponent does, because our first move here is going to go ahead and link all 3 off into our copy of Selene, and now we get to activate a couple of things. We're going to go ahead and use Selene as Chainlink 1, and in this case we discarded a spell, but we're going to pretend it wasn't a spell, so we only have 2 spells in play. How do we get around that? Chainlink 2 is going to be Poplar to place itself back in the spell trap zone. So here what we can do now is we can go ahead and use the effect of Selene. It has 1, 2, 3 counters. That is going to reborn our Black Witch as our summon number 5. If our opponent Nibiru's us here, we still have the original to fully play through, but if they don't Nibiru us here, our summon number 6 is going to be Appaloosa, which is then of course going to make us Nibiru proof for the remainder of the turn. Here we are going to go ahead and activate the Original Sinful Spoils, sending our copy of Poplar to summon out our copy of Oak from our deck, and then of course activate the Oak to summon out our copy of Ash. Here we are going to use our Snake Eyes Diabellstar to summon itself out and place our Poplar back in our spell trap zone. And now what we can do is we can go ahead and use the Ash to send itself and the Poplar, and this is going to summon out our copy of Flamberge from our deck. Here we can use the Flamberge and the Oak. This is going to allow us to link into a copy of IP Masquerena, which will then of course activate our Flamberge. We want to make sure one of them is Oak since we haven't used its effect yet. The other one can be whatever you want it to be. Here we are going to go ahead and use the effect, or the IP Masquerena and the Ash. We are going to go ahead and link them off into a copy of Princess. Princess can then go ahead and reborn out our Flamberge, which we will then use the effect to place the IP Masquerena back into our spell trap zone. Now we want to get out of the Firelock, so we are going to use the Oak and send the Promethean Princess. This is going to summon literally any Snake Eye from our deck. Doesn't matter what it is, you can do Poplar, you can do Ash, if you play a second Flamberge, if you play Birch, doesn't matter what it is, you're just going to go ahead and summon something. Now we will take the SED or whatever we summoned, and this is going to allow us to go into our copy of Moon. Now we've branched into our full Fiendsmith combo. We're going to go ahead and go into Requiem, tribute off the Requiem for our Engraver, and then here we are going to equip the Requiem to the Engraver and use both for our summon of Necroquip Princess. We can use the Engraver to summon itself back by shuffling back our Requiem, and then now we're actually not going to proceed as far as you would think. Here we're actually just going to overlay both of them into our copy of DDD Wave High King Caesar. This is going to be our end board. So we have a couple of cards in our hand. We have the Flamberge, the IP, the Appaloosa, we have the Wave High King Caesar, we have our Princess Engrave, as well as the follow-up that the Flamberge is going to get us, and once we've used the effects of the High King Caesar, we also have the Engraver, which will be able to branch into our actual full Fiendsmith combo. Since we haven't used anything like Lurie or Tract, those are still available in the deck for the full follow-up, so we are able to end on quite a substantial board. Now, like I said, we're going to show you what to do if you don't have a card you want to discard. Maybe those 3 cards in your hand are absolutely insane. So we are going to play it a little bit differently here. It does play a little bit worse into certain interactions, but it is what it is. You're going to go ahead and normal summon out your Ash. This is going to then go ahead and add your copy of Poplar. Poplar is going to summon itself, and again, this will add us our copy of Temple. We'll go ahead and activate the Temple, placing our Snake Eye Diabellstar, and then now, instead of using any of our effects, we are just going to flat out link the Ash and the Poplar. This is going to go ahead and go into our copy of Moon. Here we are going to go ahead and link off the Moon into our copy of Requiem, and then we can tribute our Requiem for our copy of Fiendsmith Engraver. We'll re-equip the Requiem to the Engraver, allowing us to use both for the fusion summon of Necroquip Princess, and then we can summon out our Requiem by our Engraver by shuffling back out our Requiem. Now, to make sure that we are no longer able to be interrupted by something like Nibiru, we will just overlay both of our level 6s into our copy of DDD Wave High King Caesar. Now we can use our effect of Snake Eye's Diabellstar. This will place the Poplar back into our spell trap zone and summon itself out. And what we can do now is we can go ahead and use the Witch sending the Poplar. Now, if you notice, we didn't use the Poplar effect to reset itself when we linked it away the first time. That's important for this reason. We're going to go ahead and use the effect of Witch as Chainlink 1 and Poplar as Chainlink 2, placing itself back in the spell trap zone, and Witch is going to go ahead and set our original Sinful Spoils. We are going to use our original Sinful Spoils to send out our Poplar. That is then going to allow us to summon out our copy of Oak, and Oak here is going to allow us to re-summon out our copy of Ash. Here we are going to use the Ash, sending itself and our Diabellstar, the Black Witch, to summon out our copy of Flamberge. Using Flamberge and Oak, we can go ahead and link off into our copy of IP Masquerena, which will of course activate our effect of Flamberge, summoning back any of our 2 level 1s, does not matter which ones. Here we can go ahead and link off into a copy of Princess, and Princess will allow us to then reborn out our copy of Flamberge. Flamberge will then be able to reset our copy of IP Masquerena, and now we can take the Princess and whatever level 1 we have left, and link both into our copy of Hida. Here we'll use the Hida and the Snake Eyes Diabellstar to go into our copy of Selene. We have 1, 2, and then our third is going to be the original Sinful Spoils, so we can remove 3 counters to resummon back out our Snake Eyes Diabellstar, and now we can use the Selene and the Diabellstar to go ahead and make our copy of Appaloosa, again ending us on 2 Appaloosa negates, 2 DDD negates, the Flamberge and the Temple being able to summon the IP to go into something like an SP. Of course, we have the full follow-up off of the Flamberge, we have the interruption of Princess in the Graveyard, and we have the follow-up of our Fiendsmith engine as well on top of it all, with additional 3 cards in our hand. Keeping in line with the 2-card combos, we are going to show you a couple of what you can do with Snake Eye Ash and a copy of Engraver. The first one is the safe option, the second one is the Wombo combo option, so let's show you guys what to do. We're going to start off by discarding our copy of Engraver to, of course, add us our copy of Tract. Activating the Tract, we can add and discard our Lurry, and this is of course going to allow the Lurry to summon itself to our field, giving us the Light Fiend that we need to then link off into our copy of Requiem. Here we can use the Requiem to go ahead and tribute it off and summon a second copy of Engraver from our deck, and then here we can just flat out use the other Engraver that we have, putting the Lurry back into our deck to summon itself out, and now instead of continuing on with a Wombo combo, we are just going to flat out overlay into our copy of Wave High King Caesar, making us Nibiru proof for the remainder of the turn. Since that did not use our normal summon, we are going to go ahead and normal summon out our Ash and proceed with our typical combo. Ash is going to add us our copy of Poplar, Poplar is going to summon and add us our copy of Temple. Temple will be activated and placing our Snake Eyes Diabellstar in the spell trap zone. Ash will use its effect, sending itself and the Diabellstar. This is of course going to summon out our copy of Oak. Oak will then reborn our Ash, and then we can use the Oak to send itself and the Poplar, summoning out our copy of Flamberge. Poplar will then be able to use its effect, placing the Snake Eyes Diabellstar back into the spell trap zone, and here we will use the Flamberge and the Ash to link into our copy of IP Masquerena. The effect of Flamberge will activate, summoning back out 2 of our level 1s. Now using the IP and either of our level 1s, we can go ahead and go into our Princess, which is of course then going to summon back out our Flamberge, and Flamberge of course is going to place our IP Masquerena into the spell trap zone. Using the Princess and whatever level 1 is left, we can go ahead and go into our copy of Hida, and then use the effect of our Snake Eyes Diabellstar, placing our Oak back in the Spell Trap Zone to summon itself out, and with the Hida and the Diabellstar, we can go ahead and link into our copy of Selene. Of course, we have enough spells. The Selene will go ahead and remove the counters to resummon out the Diabellstar, and go into our copy of Appaloosa. So we end on the exact same board with the exact same follow-up. We have 2 summon negates, 2 monster negates, the IP with the Flamberge follow-up, Princess live engrave, plus all of the possible follow-up we can need, and still having 3 cards left in our hand. Now, what happens if you have these same 2 cards and you want to end on a much better end board at the cost of being a little bit riskier? Let's show you guys what we're going to do. We're going to start things off by normal summoning out the Ash and do Ash things. That is going to add us our Poplar. Poplar is going to summon and add us our Temple. Temple is going to activate and place our Snake Eye Diabellstar to our side of the field. Now we're going to branch into our Fiendsmith engine. We're going to go ahead and use Fiendsmith to discard and add us our copy of Tract. We can activate our Tract, adding and discarding our copy of Lurie. Lurie will then be able to summon itself out, giving us the Light Fiend that we need to go ahead and link into our copy of Requiem. Requiem can go ahead and tribute. This is going to allow us to summon out another copy of Engraver, and then we can go ahead and equip the Requiem to our Engraver from our graveyard. Now we can use the Requiem as our fodder for Ash. We're going to go ahead and use Ash Effect to send it and summon out our copy of Oak, which Oak will then go ahead and reborn out our copy of Ash. Here, Oak is going to actually send the Snake Eyes Diabellstar. This is going to summon out our copy of Flamberge, meaning that now we can somewhat play through Nibiru if they haven't Nibiru'd us already, but we're not playing around hand traps here. We are trying to just set up a absolutely bonkers board. So our next move is going to be linking the Flamberge and the Poplar off into our copy of Moon. Here, this is going to activate Flamberge as Chainlink 1, Poplar as Chainlink 2. Poplar is going to go ahead and place the Diabellstar back in our Spell Trap Zone, and Flamberge is going to go ahead and summon back out 2 of our level 1s. Here we can actually go ahead and use the Graveyard effect of Tract for once, banishing it using the Closed Heaven and the Engraver on our field to summon out our copy of Lacrima. Lacrima is then, of course, going to allow us to reborn out our copy of Engraver, and now we can finally make ourselves fully Nibiru-proof, overlaying both of our 6s into our copy of Wave High King Caesar. Now, we do have a live Engraver in our graveyard, so we can go ahead and summon that by putting back our Moon of the Closed Heaven, and now that we have additional monsters on the field, we can go ahead and link the Engraver and the Ash into our copy of Sequence. Now with Sequence on the field, we have 1, 2, 3 Light Fiends, so that once again allows us to go ahead and summon out our boss monster, which is going to be the Desiree. Here we can take the Oak and the Poplar, linking both off into a copy of IP Masquerena, and then we can use the IP Masquerena and the Sequence to go into our copy of Princess. Here we will use the Princess to reborn out our copy of Flamberge, again using our Flamberge to place our copy of IP Masquerena in the Spell Trap Zone, and then we have the Graveyard Effective Sequence, equipping it to our copy of Desiree. Here we can use our effect of Snake Eyes Diabellstar, placing our Oak back in the Spell Trap Zone, summoning itself out, and now we can use the Desiree to negate our own Princess, getting us out of our Firelock, using the Diabellstar and the Princess into a 2-material Appaloosa. So now we have an absolutely insane end board off of the same 2 cards, giving us 2 Appaloosa negates, 2 of our Wave High King Caesar negates, the IP, which can be summoned off of the Flamberge or the Temple, the Flamberge, of course, getting us additional follow-up when we link it away with the IP. We have 2 on-field negates, as well as Princess in the graveyard, and guaranteed follow-up for our next turn with 3 cards left in our hand. I hope you guys are still with me because we've officially finished the combo section of the video. Now we are going and showing you guys how to play through certain interruptions. So we are going to start off with an anti-Nibiru combo line, and let's show you guys how it works. So starting off, you normal summon out the Ash, and we're going to do the same thing we always do. Ash is going to add Poplar, Poplar is going to summon itself, Poplar adds the Divine Temple, playing the Divine Temple is going to go ahead and place our Diabellstar. We can use the Ash to go ahead and send itself and the Diabellstar. This is going to summon out the Oak, and then Oak is going to go ahead and summon back out our Ash. Now we've completed 4 summons. Summon number 5, we can go ahead and send our Oak and our Ash. This is going to summon our Flamberge. They could Nibiru us here, but it's not worth it because then the Flamberge just floats, so this is not the optimal nib range. We're going to assume that our opponent is nibbing us at the most optimal time. We can go ahead and link our Poplar into our copy of IP Masquerena, and that will activate Flamberge as Chainlink 1 and Poplar as Chainlink 2. They could Nibiru us here, but since Flamberge hasn't resolved yet, we will still get the summon, so again, it's not an optimal time to Nibiru. We're going to use the Poplar to replace our Snake Eye Diabellstar, and the Flamberge is going to summon 2 of our level 1s, and this is where the optimal Nibiru point is. So we're going to assume that the rock comes down, our board is wiped, and we are given a lovely Nibiru token. Now, in previous boards, you would just pretty much end on an SP here. You would go ahead and summon out the Diabellstar, link in a Link Spider, SP, banish the Nibiru, and you would be done. But we actually have more that we can do here. We are going to go ahead and summon out our Diabellstar by placing our Oak into the Spell Trap Zone, and now we can take our token and link that off into a Link Spider. Now, thankfully, Link Spider is an effect monster, so we can take our Link Spider and the Snake Eyes Diabellstar and go into our copy of Moon, meaning that through Nibiru we have just bridged into our Fiendsmith engine. We can go ahead and link off the Moon into our copy of Requiem. Tributing the Requiem, we are going to go ahead and summon out our Engraver from the deck, and we can equip the Requiem to our Engraver, again giving us the mandatory material that we have in order to summon out our Necroquip Princess. Here we can summon back out our Engraver by shuffling our Requiem back into our extra deck, and now that we have both of these, we can overlay them into a copy of M7. M7 will do the same thing we've been doing, detaching the Engraver and adding the Engraver. Now that we have Engraver in our hand, we can go ahead and discard it, adding us our copy of Tract. We will go ahead and activate Tract, adding and discarding our Lurry. Of course, that activates the Lurry effect in Graveyard to summon itself out. And now that we have our Lurry, we can go ahead and link that plus the M7 into our copy of Sequence, and then Sequence is of course going to shuffle back the Lurry as well as the Moon, and that is going to summon out our copy of Lacrima. We can go ahead and Lacrima here to reborn out our copy of Engraver, and now we have a couple of options, and I'll go over them with you. I'm not going to show them all. I'm going to show you guys one that I've deemed to be the best, but you can go ahead and make a rank 6. You can go Beatrice send something, Princess Reborn, whatever. You can just flat out go into the DDD. I don't think any of those are really that good because it still leaves the Nibiru on their field that they can just run over your board with before doing anything. So instead we are going to link off the Engraver and the Sequence into our copy of Princess. Here the Princess is going to go ahead and reborn out our copy of Flamberge, and then Flamberge is going to go ahead and set our IP Masquerena back into our Spell Trap Zone. Now, what we can do here is we can go ahead and link off the Lacrima and the Princess into our copy of Hida. This will allow us to use the Lacrima to then shuffle back the Sequence and burn our opponent for 1200, again meaning that it is a relatively good combo in time, and that is going to end our board. Now, what we are able to do here now is, since we have the IP, we can always go ahead and go into something like an SP to get rid of our opponent's Nibiru if they want to try and just attempt battle phase, or we also have our Princess live in Graveyard as a pop as well, and we obviously get the guaranteed follow-up. Now, if we don't need to pop our opponent's Nibiru, we can make a 3-material Appaloosa for monster negates as well. It just really depends how the turn plays out, but thanks to a card like Link Spider as well as the new TCG Necroquip Princess, we are able to just set up a full board through something like Nibiru. For this next combo, through Interruption, we are going to show you how to play through an Ash Blossom on the effect of Snake Eye Ash. It does require that you have an extender, but doing the math on my particular build, there is an 84% chance that you have an extender. So this blank card is going to act as any blank extender. Now, to preface this, if the extender is something like Diabellstar, then you can obviously go ahead and get the original Sinful Spoils as well, which adds on to the ability to play through it. But I just want to show you guys what happens if it is an absolutely blank extender and how you can actually set up a board through that. So we are going to go ahead and normal summon out our copy of Snake Eye Ash. Our opponent shouldn't Ash Blossom us here. There's a much more optimal point to Ash at, but if so, you can just summon the extender and it does the exact same thing. But we are going to go ahead and resolve our Ash, add in our Poplar. Poplar is going to summon and add us our Temple. We are going to go ahead and activate the Temple, which is going to place the effect of Snake Eyes Diabellstar. And here we are going to activate the Ash, sending itself in Diabellstar to summon from our deck, but we get hit by an Ash Blossom. Now we can go ahead and summon out our blank blank extender, no matter what it is. Again, if it's something like Black Witch, you get further extension, but we are pretending that it is just a blank name on the field. We are going to go ahead and link off the Poplar and the blank name into a copy of Moon. This will then, of course, activate the Poplar to place our Snake Eye Diabellstar back into our spell trap zone. Here, now that we've branched into our Fiendsmith, we will Moon into Requiem, Requiem Tribute to summon out our Engraver, and then using the Requiem Engrave, we will equip it to the Engraver, giving us the material needed to summon out our Necroquip. Here we are going to resummon out the Engraver by shuffling the Requiem, and as always, we will go ahead and overlay them into our copy of M7. M7 will detach the Engraver so that we can add the Engraver back to our hand, and we will use the Engraver to discard and add us our copy of Tract. Tract will be able to use itself to add our Lurry and discard our Lurry, and of course this means that Lurry is going to be able to resummon itself to our side of the field. Here we can use the Lurry and the M7 going into our copy of Sequence, and then Sequence will be able to shuffle back our Lurry as well as our Moon, giving us the material needed for the copy of Fiendsmith Lacrima. Summoning the Lacrima will allow us to use its effect, giving us back the option to summon our Engraver, and now that we have 2 level 6s on field, we will overlay both of them into our copy of Beatrice. Here we will use the Beatrice, going and discarding the Engraver. This is allowing us to send one from deck to grave. We will send our copy of Snake Eye Oak. Here we can go ahead and link the Sequence and the Beatrice into our copy of Princess, activating the effect of Lacrima when it goes to grave to shuffle back the Sequence and burn for 1200. Again, good into time. Using the effect of the Princess, we can go ahead and reborn out our copy of Oak, and then Oak will allow us to reborn out our copy of Snake Eye Ash. Here we are going to use the effect of Snake Eye Diabellstar, placing our Poplar in our spell trap zone to summon itself out, and then we can go ahead and use the Oak to pop itself and the Princess to summon our Flamberge from our deck to our side of the field. Here we will take the Diabellstar and the Ash, linking both into a copy of IP Masquerena, and that will go ahead and pass our turn. And while it might not look as threatening as it could be, we obviously still have the IP plus the Flamberge to go into something like an SP. If they summon, we can go ahead and summon this, or we can summon it off of the Flamberge and go into a 3-material Appaloosa. Of course, we get the guaranteed follow-up off of our Flameberge and the Fiendsmith cards in Graveyard, but we also have Princess live as well, and 3 cards left in our hand, so relatively good way of playing through something like Ash Blossom. And for our final combo through interactions, I want to show you guys how to play through something like 2 Effect Veiler, 2 Imperm, Effect Veiler Imperm, Mourner Imperm, anything that negates effects, pretty much anything that will just say those 2 monsters on your field are vanilla monsters. So let's show you guys what to do. We are going to go ahead and summon out our Ash. Let's say it gets Impermed so you don't get any of its effects. We will go ahead and summon out our Diabellstar. Let's say it gets Impermed, you don't get any of its effects. These are 2 blank monsters on field. What can we do with that? As you guys know, we can go ahead and link them into our copy of Moon, branching us into our Fiendsmith engine. Using the Moon, we can go ahead and link into our copy of Requiem. Requiem can tribute itself to summon out our Engraver, and thanks to the TCG exclusive Necroquip, when we equip the Requiem to the Engraver, we can go ahead and fuse them off into our Necroquip. Of course, this allows us to then summon our Engraver by putting our Requiem back into our deck, and overlaying both of them, we can make our copy of M7. M7 will detach the Engraver to go ahead and add back the Engraver, and now we can discard the Engraver to add us our copy of Tract. Activating Tract, we can go ahead and add and discard our Lurry. Lurry is, of course, going to allow us to summon itself back on the discard, and then we can link both of these off into our copy of Sequence. Here we will use the Sequence, shuffling back the Lurry and the Moon. This is going to allow us to summon out our copy of Fiendsmith Lacrima. Lacrima is going to, of course, reborn out our copy of Engraver, and using both, we will go ahead and go into Beatrice. Here we can go ahead and Beatrice, getting rid of our Engraver to send a copy of Oak to the graveyard, and now we will use the Sequence and the Beatrice, same as before, going into our copy of Princess. This will activate the Lacrima, shuffling back the Sequence, giving us a 1200 burn, but now we can use the Princess to go ahead and reborn out our Oak, and Oak is obviously going to reborn out our Ash. Here we can go ahead and use the Ash. This is going to allow us to send the Princess to the graveyard and summon out our copy of Poplar. We haven't used our Poplar yet, so Poplar is going to add us our copy of Temple, which we will then activate, and using the Temple, we will place our copy of Flamberge to the spell trap zone. Here, Oak is going to send itself plus the Flamberge. This is going to summon out our copy of Snake Eyes Diabellstar, as well as activating the effect of Flamberge to summon back out our Oak and our Ash, giving us a crazy board already. Here we can use the Poplar and the Snake Eyes Diabellstar, linking them both off into a copy of IP Masquerena. This will then activate our Snake Eyes Diabellstar, or rather our Poplar, to place our Snake Eyes Diabellstar back into our spell trap zone since we haven't used its spell trap effect yet. Here we are going to use the effect of the Snake Eyes Diabellstar, placing the copy of Flamberge to summon itself to our side of the field, and this allows us to do a couple of really cool things. Here we are going to use the Oak, the Ash, and the Snake Eyes Diabellstar, all three of them, into a copy of Celine. Since Snake Eyes Diabellstar is a spellcaster, we will gain the 1, the 2, and the 3 off of the tract as well, giving us the material we need to reborn out our Snake Eyes Diabellstar, and then here we can go ahead and go into a 2 material Appaloosa. So we end on essentially the same end board, albeit with the IP and the Flamberge swapped, so we do rely on the Temple to reborn the Flamberge, but we still have the follow-up from the Flamberge, the Appaloosa negates the IP into the SP, full follow-up off of both our Flamberge and our Fiendsmith package, as well as our Princess Live in Graveyard, and that still allows us with 3 cards in hand as well. And there you guys have it. That is going to be my advanced Snake Eye Fiendsmith combo tutorial. I hope you guys enjoyed it. It was a long one, so for all of you that are still here watching, thank you so much for staying with me. I hope you guys learned something from this video. I love making these kinds of videos for you guys, especially with a really big event coming up. I want to make sure that we're all prepared to go into it. So you guys know the deal. If you liked it, make sure to subscribe, hit the notification bell, like, comment, share with your friends. Don't forget, we still have our popular Monster Metal Field Center available for purchase on InsaneTCG.com, and as always, check out the channel sponsor Dueling Guard. Using code INSANE18 or the link in the description down below, you can get 5% off your entire order, and it does help support the channel. Thank you guys so much for watching. I will see you in the next one.